Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman podcast, where I truly enjoy sitting down with people to have go-in conversations so that they can get their story out, because I believe that three things happens, ladies and gentlemen. Three things happen when people share their story. One, we learn from them. We learn from their story. Two, we are inspired by their stories. And three, we connect with them. And I believe that when we connect with people, community happens. And I love to say this, ladies and gentlemen. I love to say this. Community wins. And today, I got my man, Norman Markland, on the video Skype, because you know things are crazy right now, so it's not very much person to person, and so we're doing the best we can. And so I am so thrilled to have my man with me today. Norman, how you doing today?
And I'm good, man. Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be talking to you despite all the circumstances and things that are going on. So thank you for having me. I'm doing good, man. Doing pretty well under the circumstances. I can't complain.
Good, man. So let's jump right into this, man. How did we first meet?
Man, you probably didn't know me, but I knew you. I actually went to a relationship workshop. This is probably back in 2014, 13, 14,
Yeah.
probably 14. And you was facilitating a relationship workshop, and man, you were so animated and excited. And I remember you from there, but I think we actually met at Paradigm Shift training.
That's right.
The official met, but I've always knew of you,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, that guy has so much fire and passion for people, man. I've always looked up to you. You didn't probably know me, but I knew you just from like what you represented and your passion for the community and people. So that's when I first met, seeing you. But I think we actually met officially at the Paradigm Shift training.
Yeah, Paradigm Shift, because in Muskogee. Muskogee.
Yeah, in
you
Muskogee.
came down. We did a day's training, and I think
me
because of your schedule, you never really got into it fully, though.
Yeah. So I never really got to like actually do anything, but just having a history with them, man. I'm still consider them family.
Oh yeah.
And so
sure.
I actually want to still look for it. Yeah. So I haven't been able to. Our schedules haven't aligned up as far as the need, but I still love Paradigm Shift, and I see you doing the thing out there with them and Derek, and y'all my guys. So
yeah, man, I love it, man. I love it. Well, let's go ahead and kind of have you share your story, man. Like, you can start as early as birth if you want to, up until now, but let's get a little bit of your story out there real quick.
Okay, well, man, so I'm originally from Panama. I'm Panamanian. I was born there, and then when I was when I was the age of 2, my mom met my stepdad, and they got married. So immediately at the age of 2, I was kind of engulfed into American culture.
Okay.
So we were on an army base. So this typically, like how that works, is typically living in Panama City or living in the city and going to an army base. The army base is typically Americanized. So I had a lot of opportunities being in middle class, having my father being in the military. So I got to experience a lot of different things, recreational management, play sports, go to different camps and stuff. And so my stepfather actually decided to get out the military. So that's fast forward to the age of 10. And he literally got out the military. He's from Oklahoma. So he brought us back to Oklahoma. And then at the age of 10, I came to Lawton, Oklahoma. And then my stepfather and mom split up. And literally that became like my experience growing up in a single parent household through Lawton in my adolescent years, which I've seen a lot of different things, exposed to a lot of different things, kind of went from middle class family to impoverished. So kind of experienced situational trauma. And so going through junior high and high school, I was really passionate about sports and passionate about my community. And because I didn't have a relationship with my biological father or my stepfather anymore, I kind of gravitated towards my friends. So playing sports, being in the community, I got in some trouble, was exposed to a lot of gangs and violence. But literally like around the 9th grade, I started to like be exposed to different programs that I feel like were more positively influencing me. And so I kind of made a decision that I knew that the people I was surrounding myself with and the things that were in our community were a detriment to me instead of what's going to propel me to success. And so I was fortunate enough to be always surrounded by people like yourself to tell me, hey, man, you're a leader. I want you to go in this program. And I actually joined this program. It's a TRIO program, Educational Talent Search, man. Yeah, and it saved my life. So joining that program, I got access and exposure to higher education. They literally like a person in my life has literally always grabbed me and been like, "Hey, man, I see more in you than what you're projecting right now, and
Yeah.
I need you to do better because I see you have leadership skills." And at the time, I didn't know anything about that. I was just a follower, right?
Yeah.
So because of that program, man, I literally the day before, back then it was called Oklahoma Promise. It was called OLAP. My counselor was like, fill this out, do this. And she was literally taking me to college visits. And I was like, oh, like I can go to college, I can go outside of Lawton. So fast forward to high school graduation, I actually went, graduated and got a scholarship to UCO. Then I went to UCO, man, and got real involved on campus. Again, my freshman year was another aha moment. I was a, typical freshman from an underprivileged community, first generation. So I was out kicking it, partying, doing the most, not going to class. So my first semester, I actually got a 1.7 GPA, was on the brink of probation.
Oh man.
And I had another lady, yeah. And I had another lady, shout out to Carla Woods from the Title IX program. She literally grabbed me, was like, "Hey man, I see leadership in you. I see potential in you. I want you to join this program." And so I joined Student Support Services, another TRIO program. And literally I started really learning what it was like to be a student, getting resources like tutoring, access to computer labs, tutors. So those things propelled me to really be more focused academically. So I joined a fraternity. And then one summer, I actually worked for another TRIO program called Upper Bound. And that was like my aha moment because I got to work with Star Spencer, Crooked Oak, kids from the east side and the south side of Oklahoma City. And I was like, aha, like this is what I want to do. I see myself in these kids and I want to pour into them. I want to be an example for them. And so that literally like motivated me to go to college, to finish college. And so I graduated knowing that I wanted to work with that type of communities like where I came from. So I graduated and got my master's in adult and higher education from University of Oklahoma. And I was blessed to be kind of trickle into a director position at an Upper Bound program. So it all came full circle. So working with those kids was fulfilling for me, was so motivational. But it was a piece that I felt like was missing. A lot of the kids that were from these communities, they were going to college and they weren't persisting and they were failing. And so I was like, well, how do I really solve this problem? How do I really be more, use my platform to encourage communities that are underrepresented? So I juggle with going to get a PhD versus getting more into like independent counseling and independent life coaching. So I decided to leave higher ed. And then I went to the nonprofit sector where I currently am, work with impoverished communities. And so my goal is to really I wanted to look at the cognitive psychological piece of how trauma affects those individuals. Because I would be at like places like OU, UCO, and there would be kids that were super smart, but they would just flunk out. So I always want to like, why is that? Why am I successful versus somebody that I hang out with or go to class with or sit around with? So I always was curious about that. So I wanted to study what that looked like and what strategies and tactics could I put together to help those individuals that were falling through the cracks. So really, that's really been my lifelong mission, is to work with communities that are underserved, because I feel like that's my purpose.
Yeah.
I've seen I've seen the things that affected me and helped me. And a lot of it has been connection. It's been connection to people, connection to organizations. So that literally inspired me to do the same thing for other people. So now I work at an organization called Pivot. It's more therapeutic. So we do more life skills. We talk about barriers that present themselves from individuals living independent lives. So we look at the psychological piece, poverty, racism, things like that, how we can look at that, unpack that, and propel you to be successful, whether it's in higher education or employment, or just motivating people to really uplift, be a part of their community. So that's pretty much my trajectory as far as how I became the profession I've been, and my passion, and why I feel so adamant about giving back to my community and working in the things that I do.
Bro, that's legit, man. That's good. We're done, man. You just shared it all, man. Hey, now, were you in high school in Lawton? Did you graduate from Lawton?
Yeah, I went to Lawton. Yeah, Lawton Senior High School. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool, man. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Now, talking about these people grabbing you, right? What now?
Mhm.
When they grabbed you or pointed this out to you, did they spend a lot of time with you, or was it just those moments that they spoken to you and it kind of kept clicking, or did they spend time with you and devote like they become mentors? What did that look like?
Some of them became like mentors, but it was more of a creating a support system, and it was kind of like a redirection, right? So if like if you're in your car and you get lost in your GPS, they recalibrating, right? So it's like they were taking me and redirecting me into another space that was more conducive for success for myself. So like the one in college was literally like more of a mentor because she was able to kind of expose me to different things, but they've always been like a support system. And so I was like, well, people have done that to me for me, that I always knew it was my responsibility and obligation to do that to somebody else. Whatever platform that may naturally present itself, but they literally like seen something in me that I didn't see in myself, which I think it represents a lot of people, right? So I
Yeah,
feel like I want to be that for other people, whether it's just living by example or being representation in certain spaces, and also like teaching the skills that can be pivotal for you and your success in breaking the barriers that present themselves in your family. So a lot of them were mentors, but a lot of them were just planting seeds and redirecting me to other organizations that did the more mentoring type of thing.
so there's a combination of both, right? Like you need somebody who may just kind of help redirect you, but then you need that person who's going to
Right,
spend time with you and kind of go the journey with you or in a season with you in order to kind of keep you going in the right direction. And it sounds like you've had
right,
both. And sometimes I think when we're talking about uh, these students or kids who may be going in the wrong direction, I think sometimes it's like they're just missing somebody who can even just typically just redirect them, right? They're not even
right,
in a community where they can even get redirected, and so
right,
it's cool to kind of hear you speak to that and how that's impacted your life. And I think that would be most successful people have a combination of both. There was somebody who pointed me, and then
right,
there's somebody who spent time with me. And so, what were
right.
some things that when Carla, right, was your mentor and spending time with you? What would be some things that you said, man, she really showed me X, Y, Z? What would be a couple of those things?
So, before I give you an example, so I was a freshman, and so I thought like after I graduated high school, like I was pretty much I made it. Like I had made it out of Lawton. I was the first one in my family, not only my immediate family, my whole extended family to go to college. So I didn't realize the subconscious innate things that were in me, things like not like study skills, things like how to dress for class, like how to speak, like confidence, like things that I feel like I missed lacking at home. Like she was able to expose me to that. So those are the things, those soft skills and those skills that I feel like what I do now are very important for people to understand. And I had no clue. Like I literally thought I was doing something good because was in college, but a lot of the discipline, the resiliency, like those type of things that needs to be taught to people or brought out of people, I was lacking. And so she was able to tap into something that I didn't even know and really speak life to me, and also put me in a surrounding where that was conducive for my success. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, just real quick, going back when you were a kid, was there anything that kind of spoke to where you're at now today? Were there some things like now that you look back at your timeline, you be like, oh, I see. That's the reason I kind of gravitated to XYZ, even though
Yeah,
you were a kid. What do you remember some of that and what that would look like for you?
yeah. So it was more so now that I'm more aware, it was more so the feeling of belonging. So I attribute that to like just being kind of in the adolescent years. We're talking about 12, 13, and I was like searching for something that I didn't know I was searching for. So that feeling of connectedness, that feeling of validation, that feeling of self assurance was given to me by my circle of friends. Now, a lot of it wasn't healthy,
Yeah.
but it was more about the feeling. So now I look back and I'll be like, wow, so I know my experiences and I wasn't like a juvenile or a bad kid, but I pretty much feel like majority of people want that feeling. So you can get that feeling in something positive versus something negative, but you have to be able to distinguish the difference of the two. So I look back and I was searching for that self fulfillment, that community, that acceptance, like I said, and I didn't realize that being a part of some type of communities was going to be very troublesome for me, and it was leading me a path that a lot of my friends went down. That I look back, and a lot of us were in the same space, but we just made different decisions. No fault of our own, but just a matter of who we were surrounded by and what we were exposed to.
Yeah.
So that's why I really that really like sparks my brain and keeps me up at night. Like, how do we look at connectedness? How do we things that you talk about, go win in community and churches, and that's so important for people to be surrounded by, because they're literally nature versus nurture literally projects them to where they're going to be, and you have to be very intentional about that stuff when you talk about your independent and your growth as an individual.
Yeah, that's so good. I remember Marcus Jackson was on Cadence, was on my podcast.
Yeah.
And he talked about some of the same things about his childhood, and I think a lot of us can, where he talked about gangs and how gangs gave him that. And they were in.
Yeah.
The thing about gangs is they're intentional about reaching out to you, right, and pulling you in.
Yeah.
They know that if I can bring you in, validate you, make you feel tough, give you a certain kind of confidence, you're gonna ride with them, right? Because you start pointing to them and be like, man, I'm gonna be around the person who's lifting me up. It may not be in the right way, but it's happening, and you like, man, I'll die for you, because you've done something for me internally, and we got to figure out how to continue to bring young people into the positive community and circles. But let me ask you this. So in my life, I had the positive and I had the negative. I still, there was something in me that said, I know that's where I'm going to end up, but right now I really enjoy hanging out with the thugs, you know? And so there was always things like I was around friends who carried guns, but I never would carry a gun. Like, because I knew there was something in me that I'm like, I ain't going to do that. Sold drugs. I never sold drugs, because I was like, no, I don't want to do that, because I know that can take you to another place, right? But there was still this thing that gravitated me to them, and I think sometimes it was the validation that I got from being around them. And it seemed funner than going to church. How do you speak to young people about those two different things?
Right. So I try to, like, now that I'm more understanding, I never look down on anybody's experiences by circumstance. So a lot of it is like looking at your family history and understanding. Like, for me, I was fortunate, and I don't know your story, but I was fortunate to be more situational poverty. So my parents split up, and I just happened to be engulfed into impoverished community.
Yeah.
But some people have this in their family, like 3 or 4 generations. So let's say, like, a lot of my homies that was gangbanging, they was 4th generation Hoover Crip, or, you know, they was generational. So there's a little more incentive to follow the path that was set before you. So I look at my experiences. I don't necessarily put myself on a pedestal, but I say, well, I was fortunate not to be like my mom and parents didn't grow up in these environments. So when I talk about that stuff, we talk about like the skill part of it. So I wouldn't say like gang. Let's talk like, when you talk about gang, you're a part of a community and you're a part of the organization. So what are some positive things that you learned through that? So I try to talk to students about and kids about, like, let's take the positive and transition that into something that's legitimate, or there's something that's successful. So when we talk about being in a poverty community, stricken community, you're pretty much resilient. Like, if you can persist through that, then you can transfer those skill set into an employment job or a business or higher education. It's literally about being aware cognitively and knowing, like, you feel comfortable because you've normalized this behavior in this environment because you're so used to it being in this neighborhood. But once you go to a workspace or a college environment, they may not feel comfortable. So kind of psychologically, you're like, I don't really belong here. So you have to learn how to establish that belonging by surrounding yourself with people that connect. And that's a skill. A lot of people don't understand. That's a skill you have to learn to do. Like, how do I find mentors? What do I do? What does mentor look like? What does a positive mentor say to me? And be able to understand that. So when I talk to youth, it's literally like a training. Like, let's talk about how to connect to somebody positive. What do you need to do? Because what their subconscious is going to lead them to do is what's around them and what they've been exposed to. And that a lot of times is negative. So it's not necessarily like looking down. It's about, let's be aware of our surroundings.
Sure.
Let's make critical decisions, and let's understand the consequences of the things that we choose to do and how we surround ourselves with. Because most people, this from my experience, most people are going to be like you, they're going to experiment or be a little rebellious, but it's the ones that take it a little too far. It's taking a little too far, right? So how do we know, okay, like, okay, this is wrong. I feel it consciously. What do I do now? How do I get out of this situation where I know I'm going to be talked about, or I'm not going to fit in, or I'm not going to get my stripes? Like, what does that look like? Let me find a way to navigate through this crisis because it's a crisis. So to me, that's a psychological process and skill set that kids and communities that are stricken by poverty and gang violence need to be aware of. Because literally, if you walk out the door, this is what you're exposed to.
Yeah.
Similar, if you're exposed, if you grow up in a household full of doctors, then you're going to be more susceptible to being a doctor.
Yeah.
So same way, if you grew up in a neighborhood full of gangsters, Crips and Bloods, then you're probably going to have a higher percentage of joining that gang. So really just unpacking that and what that looks like from a personal level and also from a systemic level too. Because a lot of times we stigmatize people that are in gangs or kids, but a lot of it's just like there's no difference in joining a gang than you being in a community that's privileged and joining the boys club or
sure.
YMCA. It's really just what you're exposed to and teaching kids. Like, just because you're exposed to it doesn't mean you have to make that decision. And if you do make that decision, learn when to draw the line and learn when to walk away for your betterment of your life.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now, you said you play sports.
Yeah. So I grew up playing basketball. And again, I was fortunate to have that sense of brotherhood and connectedness to my basketball team, right? So, that was my brothers. They was my family. So growing up playing basketball, so a lot of my time was devoted to hooping and being in the community centers and on the streets playing basketball. So I was definitely fortunate.
Did you play all the way through high school?
Yeah, I played all the way through high school.
Yeah. So are some of those things that you learned playing basketball in your early days, some of those things that you learned through being on the team and things of that nature, are those things you're teaching now, and how are those things still applicable to your life?
Yeah. So I learned like the teamwork aspect, the competitiveness, the work ethic, the discipline. And again, that's what you're asking, what we're talking about is what skills are you getting out of these experiences?
Yep.
So that for me has been fortunate because I'm a real disciplined person. It's actually one of my strengths. And I think I learned that early on from having positive coaches that were like, no, we're going to continue to do this repetitively until you get it right. So now I was like, so what platform can you develop a sense of discipline? And what does discipline look like? And how can you implement discipline in your life? If you've never been expected to do that, then you may not understand that skill set, right? So I would say discipline, working as a team, compromise, communication. Those are the core skills that you learn. And then a sense of build resiliency, like, playing on the streets or playing in the hoop in the courts. Like if you lose, you're going to be out. So gives you a little bit of grit, a little bit of resiliency, and those things are applicable to anything we do in life, the core of it. So I really try to unpack that and make kids or people understand like what's the foundation as far as a skill set that you learn in any situation that you can transfer into this space, right? Yeah. And be successful. We're talking about adaptive functioning skills. And so I found joy and pride in that. And a lot of people are unaware. They just think, oh, well, this is my life or this is who I am. But no, you learn some valuable skills. Like you learn some traits and you learn some things to navigate, and like let's use that to build up that to use that as part of your story and continue to grow.
Yeah, I wish we would be more intentional about as we are bringing kids and students up through sports, that we're super intentional about showing them how this looks in their life later. Oftentimes we'll teach them these things, but we never really compare like how this is going to look outside of football, outside of basketball, and how it can help you be successful. I think as we live, we begin to recognize those things, especially as we may start having conversations with people and they start asking and being intentional about asking those questions. Then we start identifying as we go through our timeline. Oh, I learned teamwork from being on this team. Compromise. Now, I never heard anybody talk about compromise and learning that through playing on the team. But talk about what it means to, because I think that's a very important thing. Like you got to be willing to, especially as a leader. I think learning to compromise only helps you because really it's about serving others. I see leadership as a way of serving others. So when you call me a leader, that means, man, they see me as a person who's compromising as far as like, it ain't about me, it's about them. And I'm not help the big house so I can go and serve in an area maybe that doesn't have that East Side Oklahoma City, you know, in certain
Right.
parts of that. So talk about compromising and how that's important to you.
Yeah, I had a really good coach in junior high, Coach Turner. Actually, shout out to Coach Turner. So I was a point guard, so being a leader, facilitator, like I learned like the importance of doing your role, right, and not like looking for other types of characteristics or validation, but look at it from a collective perspective. So I learned like the importance of like playing defense, hustling, and then I say this, when I got in trouble, like he was a good coach that he held me accountable. Like actually one time I was the funny story, I was in 8th grade and I mooned this girl, right? And coach
Now, did you moon her at school or away from school?
I mooned, I was very childish as a kid, right? So in PE class, I pulled out my britch, I mooned her, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking. So my PE teacher told my coach came in there in practice like, you ain't playing, right? So if you're gonna be on this again, holding me accountable, so you're gonna be on this team, you're gonna have to understand like you're gonna have to compromise. So you're gonna have to compromise some of your behaviors in order to be a leader, and there's some consequences for things that you do.
Yeah.
So off the court, and he was a good model for me, man, as far as like what he represented. So I think what you're saying, like having a good coach will harp on those things.
Yeah.
So he was like that at an early age. Like, yeah, you can come to school and clown all you want, but if you're gonna play on this team, you better have your grades,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna be this, you're gonna have a good best. So he was teaching us that early on. He didn't play.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that foundation. But on the court, compromising, passing the ball. You know, I wasn't the best scorer, so I had to, compromise for the lead score. But there's other things I could do to make our team better. So again, that's a skill set when you're working as a team, whether it's on the court or in the workforce, right?
Yeah.
Or it's in your community. Like really not looking at yourself from an individualistic perspective, but what can I bring to the table to make us better collectively? And let's focus on those strengths that I have and those skills, and how can I make the at-large thing a lot better instead of just focusing on me.
For sure. That's good. That's good, man. So, thinking about this, I don't think these are things that, and I don't know, in your organization, are you working with adults and young folks?
So I primarily work with young adults, so
Okay.
Kind of transitional years, so 16 to 23.
Okay.
Right. So those years when you start thinking you grown and you start wanting to do your own thing, and you may be a little rebellious to your parents or your home situation, and you think like, oh, I'm about to do this. And a lot of statistics show a lot of the times crime happens typically around that age.
Okay.
You start to develop your identity. When you go to college, you start developing your core groups, whether your religious, political, economic beliefs. You start joining clubs. So that age break is I'm very passionate about it, because typically that's where people start developing who they are as young adults.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll literally see a switch in ideologies as you go from, teenagers to young adults, and who you become exposed to. A lot of people may experience their first relationship, and it's like literally the people you surround yourself and come across, like that makes the difference in those critical developmental years for your life. So I typically work with them in high school and follow them until they're like 23, 24.
Yeah. That's the same age as Job Corps.
Yeah.
Same age, 16 to 24 is what Job Corps does, and so I've had experience working with Job Corps, and very, very fun, man. I really enjoyed working with those students. So we have a Job Corps. I'm in Guthrie, in Oklahoma, and so we have a Job Corps here, and I had the opportunity to work with those students for a number of years. And so very, very good experience for me. Man, what you doing for fun these days, man? I know you're doing serious work working with these students and helping them move forward in life. I like to say I like to help people go further better. So what you doing for fun, man? What are y'all doing in Oklahoma City for fun these days?
Well, currently not anything but being quarantined. So
we're going to act like it ain't quarantine season.
Right. But before that, I hung out with my girlfriend, my friends. We hang out and go out, kick it. I still like to go out. I'm a very social butterfly.
Yeah.
I have a high social aptitude, so I like to still connect. So I like to go out, hang out with friends, and really just be in the community. I work out. I try to read. Then me and my daughter spend a lot of time together too. So
yeah, y'all TikTok.
Do a lot of fun with her.
Are y'all actually TikToking?
Yeah, man, she got me. Man, huh?
Are y'all actually TikToking, or are you just doing it on Instagram? I don't see the TikTok.
Man, we do. I have a TikTok, but she made me get a TikTok, so I only have 2 posts on there. I've just started it, but so she literally watches TikTok dances,
Uh-huh.
and so she watched since we've been in quarantine. She's been watching TikTok dances all day, every day. So, and she's like super determined to learn these dances. So she made me learn one. And so I got it real competitive and started teaching her. We started doing it together. So it actually, just trying to look at the positives of spending time together and trying to make make light of all this, things that are going on in our community, our society right now.
Now, how old is she?
She's 4, man. She's 4. She just turned 4 in November.
That's super cool. Like, y'all are doing it too. Like, I wouldn't be able to even remember all those moves. I was proud of you, man. I was like, man, you're a little younger than me, but I was like, you going at it, man.
Yeah. So I try to stay youthful with the youth I work with. I stay for the culture, so I can relate to her a little bit. And say be the cool dad. When I was young, I always wanted to be the cool dad, so I think I would be the cool dad now.
Yeah, man. Well, you doing it with some TikTok now. Talking about staying relevant, so you can connect with these students. Like, how do you Are you naturally? Do you naturally gravitate to the same kind of music that they do, or is that challenging for you?
Okay, so see, like how I look at things is so interesting. I always look at my experiences. So I grew up very hip hop, and so now as an adult, I'm like, okay, like that to me, like I try to look at the skills and all the positives. So being able to like be youthful spirited and like not necessarily know all the dances, but be able to relate and engage with some of the dialect and conversation and language that the young people do. So when I start, they may see me and they be like, oh, he's a squirt. They be like, he a squirt. He got glasses. He a nerd. He wears suits and stuff. But then when I'm able to identify with them and communicate, and then we talk about some of the same pop things they talk about, whether it's culturally or food. They're like, oh, okay. So to me, that's my strength in building rapport and being able to connect with people. And I particularly feel like God's giving me a youthful spirit. To where I look younger than I really am, to be able to relate, So I've taken the positive out of it. And even with my daughter, just being, never being too serious and not have fun and, work out and stay youthful as much as I can. So when I take with you, I'm able to have those conversations. And they don't necessarily look at me like I'm on a pedestal, but I'm kind of one of them, and they see themselves in me, which I think is a cool thing.
Yeah. Do you have a top 5 hip hop artist?
Top 5, yeah, man, of course.
Who's in your top 5?
You want to rank them or you want no order? What you want?
Let's rank them.
Okay, I would say number 1 is Jay. I got to give it to Jay. I would say Jay-Z, number 1. I would say 2, Tupac. I would say 3, Biggie. I would say 4, Andre 3000. And 5th is a toss-up, man. But I would go ahead and say Kanye, old Kanye. I'm going to say put Kanye at 5th. At 5th is like between Kanye and Eminem. But I'm going to go ahead and say Kanye for number 5.
Okay. So you put Jay-Z over Pac, huh?
Yeah. Just because of longevity, man. Like, I'm a big Jay-Z fan, and his lineage, what he's done, it's crazy to me. Like, I started liking Jay-Z when like 2002 Blueprint, Blueprint. Yeah. So I've been a diehard Jay-Z fan since then, and man, what he's done and what he continues to do is remarkable, man, to me.
Yeah, for sure. Andre 3000, that's a good pick.
Man, cold with it.
Yeah.
He hadn't put out a lot of the body of work, but to me, he's still assassin lyrically. So, I like the foundation of what he represented when he came in the game from the South. Literally, I feel like it was a pillar for the South when it came to hip hop. So I got to give him his just due.
Now, somebody that I've always liked, but typically does not land in people's top 5 or top 10 is Wyclef.
Wow, you like Wyclef? Okay.
Yeah. I thought he. Huh?
That Fuji movement was crazy.
Yeah, man. Lauryn Hill, man. I thought she was. That's the era we come from, man. That '90s era. Yeah.
Like, I always feel like it was still a little bit soulful. Plus, we had technology.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh man, that was crazy. Like, as far as musicianship, yeah, Wyclef is the beast.
Yeah, man. Now I thought, I think it's interesting. Like, I'm not as relevant and as into it as you probably would be, but R&B I feel like it's dropped off. Like, R&B in the 90s, man, like we had the best of both worlds, man. R&B, hip hop. I mean, even if you went country, Garth, I mean, like, we just had a good mix of everything in the 90s, man. And so, because R&B, who's R&B artist? I don't even know.
Man, it's kind of like pop now. I would say so. Like, I think like the girls represent for R&B, man, like SZA, those type of artists. But I would say it's more like pop. I mean, you still got Chris Brown and Trey Songz.
Yeah.
Then you got like the other artists like Black, Six Black, and then uh, I can't think of his name. The Weeknd, like those type of R&B artists. But it's kind of like a new genre, kind of like. But you're right. Like we grew up with like the early Ushers
Oh man,
and
Jodeci.
those type of Jagged Edge,
Yeah,
Jodeci,
man. H
H-Town,
Town, man.
old R. Kelly. You know
Old
what
R.
I'm saying?
Kelly.
Yeah. before before we knew about all this stuff.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of old, like the
Yeah.
old Bill Cosby,
Man,
you know, like
yeah. Man, you gotta be careful saying R. Kelly. Hey, before we do it,
yeah.
before we had access to all that stuff.
Yeah, man. No, the technology, internet, social media has just changed.
Yeah.
Just how I was talking to.
But
Go ahead.
I think happened. Sorry, like I think when it like the artistry of music kind of is more like business now, and you see it like even with the NBA, like I think it's more about branding and marketing and making money instead of the actual art.
Yeah.
So like the old school, like we go back to like the Temptations and those type of artists. Like I feel like it was more artistic. Like they were really feeling it, and now it's kind of more about the branding, the marketing, and the money, right? So you kind of lose like the sense of the real core of it as you kind of go on, and it becomes more about business, right? That's just my opinion. I don't know.
No, I think so too, and I think, but I think even in like sports and all this, social media has just changed the way people just approach everything. Because I was just like, could you imagine like LeBron's on TikTok? I could never have seen Michael Jordan on TikTok.
Never.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was talking to Sean Johnson about this. We just had a go-in conversation, and I was like, man, there are some things now that I'm saying. Charles Barkley wouldn't have never been on TikTok. You know, like
it's different. Yeah, it was a different generation, different era.
Which I like. You get to see a little bit more.
Right. That's the cool thing is that you have access to that because like the good and the bad. Because we didn't have social media and stuff, but we talked a lot more and met up a lot more.
Oh yeah,
but
man.
we weren't exposed to a lot of the stuff we have access to now with our phones. So the good and the bad.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to interview Nikki Nice, Councilwoman Nikki Nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and she and I were talking about the 23rd days. On 23rd on the east side, man, it used to. It would be jam packed with people, and we had streets like that here, even in Guthrie, and the smaller communities are. I think about Freaknik or Black Beach Weekend, things that I've been to. Like, there's no type of gatherings like that anymore because everybody's on social media, which I miss. Like, my kids have never experienced that, being able to go to a block.
It's crazy how the world evolves, right? Like, even from us being kids, like, the world has changed so much.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's ludicrous.
Yeah. Now going back to your work, how did they come up with the name Pivot? Is that am I saying that right?
Yeah. So we are formerly Youth Services of Oklahoma County. So it's basically a state agency. We were around since 1972, but in the last 5 years, we wanted to kind of get away from kind of the whole stigma of like agency, like DHS. Nothing against DHS, but we didn't want to necessarily look at the service part because a lot of people in the community would be like, oh, I don't want to be services. So we kind of looked at going more into a kind of independent, kind of nonprofit. So we rebranded and changed our name. I came in 2016 and we changed our name in 2018. So it's literally been 2 years since we changed our name.
What was the thought behind the new name?
Just kind of a rebranding. So when you talk about like, when I first came, we were Youth Services for Oklahoma County. So that's kind of like in my opinion, a lot of youth we work with, it was kind of like a state agency type of stigma feel. And so we kind of wanted to get away from the whole idea of like, oh, we're associated with like DHS or state departments or nothing against those organizations. It's just that once in the community, there's kind of a stigma when it comes to like, are you involved in DHS? Are you involved in youth services?
Yeah.
Like we didn't want families to feel encapsulated. So we kind of rebranded to look at more of a community empowerment from a holistic perspective. When we talk about basic needs, counseling, intervention and diversion programs, education and employment. So looking at the skills that we can help families and individuals kind of foster so they can live their independent lives. So necessarily more of the perception and the idea of a name and branding. So we wanted to kind of move in a different direction. And then also for donorship, we used to be very reluctant and very dependent on state funding. So we wanted to kind of be more independent donorship. So seek out more community partnerships, more donorships and individual donors. And so we felt like by having a kind of a new name that we could kind of go after those instead of be relying on state funding or federal funding.
Cool. Yeah, no, I just like the name Pivot. And so I didn't know if y'all were sitting down, y'all was like, oh, Pivot, because we're at, like the way we approach.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was a thought like that behind the name itself. And so that's cool, though. It kind of helps change the paradigm as far as how people think and look at you all. So
exactly.
Really, yeah. Cool. Now, so I know you said you're very disciplined. That's one of your strengths. Are you a routine guy? Like, do you got a morning routine? What does that look like for you?
Yeah.
How do you approach your days?
So traditionally, I was very methodical, and lately in the last years, I've tried to be more open-minded. So, but I try to start my days in the Word. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've tried to be more into the Spirit, more into the Word, learning scriptures. So I start off my day by reading scriptures, devotions, and really trying to kind of get my mind right for the day. Yeah. I try not to get on social media until I get to work or during the day. So I really try to put myself in a positive frame. So I used to listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of motivational videos, YouTube, and then also prayer in the morning.
Okay. Who's some of your people that you jumping on as far as podcast goes?
So actually a lot of local ones, and then also the hip hop preacher E.T. Thomas, of course. I listen to a lot of sports podcasts, sports radio, a lot of the big time preachers. I listen to in the morning as well.
Okay, that's cool. Now
I like Joyce Meyer. Like something about Joyce Meyer, man. Joyce Meyer be spitting.
Joyce Meyer's old school, man.
Hey man, I love Joyce Meyer. When I see a little thing on YouTube, motivational, I don't know, she speaks to me, man. I don't know, somebody like Joyce Meyer be spitting, man. Man, I be like, this lady be talking to me, man.
You're like, I ain't sleeping on Joyce. Don't sleep on Joyce.
Hey, Joyce, Hey, I love Joyce. T.D. Jakes, too, but Joyce, man, when I hear her voice, man, that little country accent, man, Joyce be getting me motivated.
Talking about her husband, Dave, and how she submits to him. He's a leader, even though she's the face of the organization and all that, man. And so, man, Battlefield of the Mind is one of her books. Man, great book. That was, early 90s, I think, when I read that, but it really made an impact on my life. And I used to listen to Joyce quite a bit back in the day. I'm talking 90s, man. She's been around forever, so that's cool. How do y'all go about teaching your young people about things like a morning routine and how they approach their days and goal setting? What does that look like for y'all? Is that something that y'all stress, goal setting and things like that?
Yeah. So when we talk about service delivery models or kind of plans of action, personally, I like to look at when we talk about like a lot of times when you say like, what do you want to do? What's your goal? They'll say a big broad goal, but then learning how to break that down. So we talk about SMART goals, setting objectives. So let's say I want to lose weight, right? So what does that look like? So we're going to break it down. Okay. What does that look like for the month? So I need to work out 3 times a week, 4 weeks out of the month, I need to work out at least 3 times. So what does that look like during the day? What can you do? So having those really is just having those conversations, and then having the youth be aware of like how they can implement that in their own lives. So again, when we talk about skill set, that may be a skill that no one's ever taught them how to set a goal and how to accomplish it, right? So it's about personal accountability. So when we talk about like triggering things like anxiety and depression, like let's talk about your patterns of behavior. Like what are you doing every day? If you're in a toxic environment, how do you disassociate from that in the moment to have a sense of peace? Maybe it could be 30 minutes or 40 minutes. What resources can you tap into that are around you that can help foster some of this healthy behavior? So yeah, a lot of it's conversational, and then having them understand how to keep themselves accountable. And then hopefully that teaches them a life skill so they can do that on their own, kind of teaching them how to fish so they can be really self-sufficient and be independent in their own life. That's our goal, is to really teach skills and empower people so they can take care of themselves and get through and navigate. Because everybody has problems, everyone has challenges, but it's about how we cope and how we navigate through those problems that really define who we are. And so really teaching that and teaching youth not to pretty much encapsulate their trauma. So a lot of the youth that I work with come from inner city communities or been in DHS custody their whole life. So how can we unpack that and make that a part of your story and make that a part of your purpose? So a lot of it could be spiritual, a lot of it could be religion. It could be what's your motivation to break those generational cycles in your family. So a lot of it's just conversation and then teaching them the skills for them to be successful. And I do a lot of other mentoring and things on the side, like with my scholarship program, things of that nature in my community that I feel like a lot of it is just modeling a behavior. And people more so learn by what they see you doing rather than what you telling them. So just kind of showing them and being an example is really what we try to do.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, let's talk about your scholarship program, man. When did you start that?
Yeah.
How did you start it? What's the goal there?
So Markland Motivate Scholarship Foundation, it was just an idea. I always had this kind of like conundrum of like, I didn't feel like I was doing enough for my hometown. Again, I always look at my experience and I said, man, there was so many people that poured into me. I felt like I wasn't doing enough for my hometown or Lawton community, right? So I had this idea of starting a scholarship program where when I was in school, we didn't have a lot of people that went to college. I didn't have a lot of people that came back and said, hey, this is what college is like. We had counselors, but they were counselors. So I wanted to use my story to create a foundation, one, to give financially, but two, also to be like a life skill and a case management and a mentor piece to show youth like, man, this guy came from the same neighborhood I came from. How did he do it? Again, providing that sense of belonging. So I started it 3 years ago with just an idea, man. I really had the idea like 8 years ago, but I was too fearful to put it out there. So 3 years ago, I was like, man, I'm gonna do it. So I started developing the paperwork and all that stuff, the branding, and so I just started asking my friends for donations. And my first year, I raised $1,000, and that may not be a lot, but giving out $1,000 scholarship is a lot to a young male. So it's particularly designed for African American men from Lawton, who technically wants to kind of go to college, right? And they have a financial need. So year two, I was able to raise $1,500, and these are just sending out emails, PayPal, just requesting for donations. So people donate $20 here, $50 here, some people $100, and it added up. So this year, I haven't been able to give it out because of the virus, but my goal is to grow it and bring it to Oklahoma City now. And now I want to grow it into a mentorship program too, where these young men, I feel like what is missing a lot of times is access. So I want to be able to expose them to a Hetty Coleman, like all the great things you're doing. And it may spark somebody's brain like, man, I want to do what he's doing. And all that's missing is that connection piece. So one of my, again, strengths, I feel like, is the ability to connect and bridge people, things like what you do. And so if I have a kid that may just be a happy person and wants to use his spirit of happiness, well, I know a person that does that exceptional. Yeah. Let's talk to Hetty, right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's my goal as the program grows, because I'm fortunate. I feel like God has put me in a position to be exposed to several demographics. I be around rich people. I be around people that have a lot of money, but also be around people that don't have money. So I'm like, what do I do with that? What do I do? What is that telling me? What do I need to do with those experiences? I need to bridge people together, right? So I need to take these communities and expose them and vice versa, so we can build and bridge relationships. I feel like that's my purpose. So with the scholarship, I want to grow it to more of a mentorship piece, to where young males can be exposed to individuals that look like them, that are successful in their communities, and hopefully that sparks some kind of curiosity and passion within themselves, man. So I'm just using my platform to give back and hopefully spark brains, man, and motivate people. So Markland Motivate. So I want to, speak. I do some speaking here and there, community activism, building, and then the financial piece is just encouraging young males to go to college, man, and be successful.
That's cool, man. Do you take the Cash App? Can I Cash App you a little couple of dollars?
Yeah.
What's your Cash App?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. In Markland too. So now I need to. So since school's out, this spring may be on a hiatus. So I actually may postpone it to giving out the scholarship in the fall. And so I have some ideas about bringing it to Oklahoma City, maybe creating some partnerships, and kind of growing the program financially as well, and really just again making an impact. And so $1,000 may not be a lot, but for those kids, they're like, man, that's another 3 books, right? That's another semester that I can keep going to college. So that inspires me to really, and just, some of the families that I've been able to connect with.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of them, they don't have their first generation. So like, what do I do when I go to college? So I have that experience, and I know so many men that have it, and women. So I have this big bank of people, that successful people, that I need to use my resources to help people that may not have that. So that's my goal, man. It's just connection piece and bridge building and connection. I love it, man.
Bro, no, I love it too, man. I'm proud of you for taking that idea and making it happen, because so many people just sit on ideas, and I think sometimes it's just we overthink it, versus just like, hey, man, everybody started something at zero. Get out there,
right,
make it happen, fail, learn. You're not really failing if you're learning from it. So, man, I'm proud of you, because so often we'll just sit on ideas forever versus just taking those steps, man. So do you split the 1,000 up, or do you give the 1,000 to one person?
So the first year I did one scholarship for 1,000. Last year I was blessed to raise enough money for 2 scholarships, and this year I was on a path to do 3, but all the virus stuff hit. So right now I'm kind of reevaluating how I connect with people since there's no more school, and so I may just postpone it to the fall, and then next year give out 3 or 4. But my goal is to continue growing it. So it just depends on, so we have an application process, people who read and score. And each year, based off how much money we raise, will decide how many scholarships we give out. So the least I want to do is 500 and 1,000, but my goal is to give out at least $1,000 scholarships.
Nice. Well, man, tell everybody how they can connect with you.
Oh, so you can connect with me on all social media platforms. Instagram, in Markland 2. I don't have a Twitter. Facebook, Norman Markland. I'm LinkedIn, Norman Markland. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think, did I miss anything? Snapchat, in Markland 2.
What about your website? You got a website?
I don't have a personal website yet, but that's on the to-do list. I'll have that here in the next month. So email norman.markland@yahoo.com. So all that.
Cool. And what's that Cash App again, just in case somebody wants to donate?
In Markland 2.
Yeah, and so just go on and support the great work that Norman is doing. Man, I appreciate you, man, so much, and I enjoy following you, and it's been cool to watch you and your daughter, and you spending time with her, and so big shout out to you, and continue to do the work that you do. What about Pivot? How do people learn more about Pivot?
Yeah, www.pivotok.com, .org. I'm sorry. Also, you could Google Pivot. We also take personal donations as well. We just opened up some tiny homes last spring. Last fall. So we take donations, food items, housing and clothing items, and also personal donations. Especially under these times, we aren't allowed to do a lot of the fundraising we typically done. So you want to Google Pivot, or also go to www.pivotok.org and see all the wonderful things we do as well.
Well, hold on, man. We're just going to jump off, but tell me about these tiny houses, man. How many of y'all have them? Where are they at?
Oh, yeah. So listen, man. So Pivot, we have a 18-bed youth shelter that's specifically for youth that are under 18. So we knew that there's a gap, right? So if you graduate and let's say you work a job, it may be like $12 an hour, you probably can't afford your own space. So we were fortunate to get this grant. So we built 3 tiny homes. Actually, one of my best friends is one of the field managers, Marcus Uday Development. And so we built 3 tiny homes, and we're building more. And so the goal is to put youth that are in transition and may be homeless, so they get to live there with a small rent fee, like $150. And then we help them go to college and get jobs. Again, so the goal is to not only give them housing, but teach them wraparound skills to help them be successful. So right now we have 3, and we're building more. I personally think it's going to be a model for the country, because there's a big gap in affordable housing when it comes to young adults. So this is a national conversation. I think Pivot is at the forefront of housing, not only in our county, in the state, but in the country as well, if you ask me. So I think having a tiny home is a good model, and I think you'll start seeing more of it moving forward.
Man, that's legit, man. Yeah, So my last podcast, I think it's my last podcast, I was talking to a guy, his family builds tiny homes, and he was just saying how they're trying to figure out how to continue to move forward with it, because the financing isn't quite there like it used to be, like for people who just want to kind of live off grid or whatever the case may be. But it may be more so about partnering with nonprofits and organizations in building tiny homes, kind of what you're saying now, because, man, it continues to seem like a conversation that continues to come up for homeless, for people who are in transition, all these different things where tiny houses may be the right fit for that. And so, man, kudos to y'all, man. Keep making it happen.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Man, you just killing the game, man.
Man, I'm trying to. I want to be like you when I grow up, man.
When you'll start your podcast, man.
Man, I don't know. I don't think that's me, man. I don't think I got the podcast in me, man.
You ain't got it, man.
I don't know. I don't think that's my. Hey, I want to give you a shout out, man, because I inspired by your sense of being optimistic and the way you give back. The notes you write, man, that's very inspiring. So I want to tell you, keep doing that, because when I'm at home and I'm like, man, Hetty's doing that, I need to get up and do something. So each one teach one, and iron sharpen, man. So you the man, and thank you for all that you do for the community, bro.
Man, I appreciate it, man. I just try to love people, man. At the end of the day, it's all about people coming back around and saying, why do you do what you do? So I can point them to Jesus Christ. And so I love it, man. I love it. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, man.
Once again, thank you for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman Podcast. And I want to say, as always, ladies and gentlemen, as always, go win.